Right now, I'll be sharing 5 bulking secrets that really make a difference. The first being, you need to stop eating according to natural appetite. This is screwing you over in more ways than you can possibly realize, but 2 are most notable. First is the fact that you can enter a dirty bulk, which is not doing you any favors in terms of granting additional muscle mass. Rather, you're just getting fatter for no reason while compromising your health. And secondly, you might undereat, which is particularly notable for skinny guys. If you're someone who considers yourself to be a hard gainer, which may be one of the reasons why you're bulking, good luck surviving with natural appetite. You might undershoot your calories big time while not hitting the desired macronutrients. These are the lifters who claim they have fast metabolisms, yet when you track things down on MyFitnessPal or Chronometer, the truth is revealed. Massive calorie deficit or yo-yoing of the days. You see, you might be able to handle a large pizza on one day, but the following days after that point, you're not eating in a maintenance phase anymore. So things tend to balance out. Instead of looking at the daily diet, look at it from a weekly perspective. And natural appetite will surely lead you down that path if you're someone who naturally retains a leaner body. This is what skinny genetics really mean. You have a small appetite. And although I've heard the argument that when you start lifting heavy, there will be a natural boost, it still may not be enough for you guys who are really struggling to bulk, or you're undergoing several plateaus because your diet is off. Honestly, the easiest solution is to track. It doesn't have to be forever, but you need to have a general idea of what's happening here. And the same goes for exceeding that normal calorie surplus. We want to lean bulk because dirty bulking doesn't do you any favors. Now, let's say you don't have this problem. You're like, Alex, I know I'm in the proper surplus. I'm gaining consistent weight. Everything is all good. Okay, that might be true, but did you consider the macronutrients? It's entirely possible, just saying, to be in a 20% surplus while not acquiring adequate protein. As easy as protein is to hit. Why? Because of processed foods. If you're eating out on a daily basis or buying things that are pre-made but are obviously not healthy, it doesn't matter that you're in a calorie surplus. You literally wasted that opportunity. All you're doing is gaining additional fat because we can make a potential argument, though the science does not support this, that a 20% surplus builds more muscle than a 5% surplus. We can make that case, but here, that is no longer possible because your macros are completely imbalanced. So don't think for a second that, oh, I'm bulking, diet no longer matters. Yeah, it does. And keep in mind, the worse you eat, the more sluggish you're going to feel and you have less energy overall. So talk about being less productive. Anyway, the solution is to eat the way that you normally did during your maintenance phase or even cutting phase. Healthy foods year-round, but a little bit more. That's all. So if you're used to having a cup of rice with your meal, have a cup and a half. If you normally have 50 grams of lentils in a soup, add 75 grams. It's literally all about increasing that quantity very slightly, but maintaining that which got you results in the first place. It's not about freestyling it. It's not about eating whatever you want on a daily basis. That is how you ruin yourself. That's how you just get fat or simply undereat in some cases like I discussed before. So that is my number one advice for anyone who's bulking. You need to stop listening to natural appetite. It can and will fail you. This is why a lot of guys are not making gains despite running good programs. Now my next tip, which complements the first point, is to not exceed 20% body fat. I'll tell you why. It keeps you accountable within the bulk itself. Basically, you're not gonna overshoot your calories in this way as much as you might want to because you know that the faster you hit that cap, the sooner you're gonna have to cut. So a slower, longer pace approach is what we want in the first place, and this ensures that we're gonna go through that. And secondly, when you go beyond 20% body fat, you're no longer getting insane benefits, at least leverage-wise, unless you just get super fat, and in that case, that's obviously not recommended. So that swole, slightly fluffy appearance that a lot of us want is achieved when you cap things at 20%. Beyond that, you're just gonna look fat. Or you're gonna look fat swole, which is a different look altogether, but it's surely not aesthetic, and you're distorting your proportions completely. And at that point, you're going to have to cut for so much longer, which is the number one con of this approach. You don't wanna have to cut for half a year. Talk about a waste of progress when all you had to do was slowly work up to that percentage. What you should be doing is capping things, all right? Know what your limit is, and if you do hit that limit, perform a mini cut. Simple as that. And a mini cut can be 2 weeks of being aggressive. It could be throwing in some 48 to 72 hour fasts once in a while. Just make sure that you're not getting too fat. The longer your bulk is, the better off you're going to be. And also we can talk about things like nutrient partitioning and just the overall hormonal benefits of being in a slightly leaner state. That's why know what your limits are. Anyway, that's just a little pro tip. Let's move on to some bigger stuff now. The real secrets of this video. I strongly recommend that you start doing calisthenics during this time frame. It's the perfect opportunity. You basically have a free weighted vest. Think about how easy it's going to be to perform harder progressions of bodyweight movements once you lean down. I know in my case, I wasn't able to do one-arm pull-ups until I hit 160 pounds. Moment I got that, I was able to rep it out easy. Why? The strength was already there. I was already doing the negatives of one arm when I was in the 180s. I was doing heavy weighted pull-ups. But you chop off that weight and boom, max out leverages for calisthenics. So why not make things hard for yourself right now using simpler variations? This will do a lot for conditioning, which I'll touch upon more later, while building more muscle mass. Incorporate grease in the groove. I actually made a video on doing this weighted, but you don't have to anymore because you're already heavier. So why not go for it? Why not do high volume push-ups, prisoner style workouts, getting some additional volume in with a heavier load? If you were originally at progression number 5, now you might be back at progression number 3. But now when you build up to progression number 5 again at this heavier weight, and then you cut right after, you might skip to 7, 8, maybe the maxed out version right off the bat because the leverages were so not in your favor that just losing the weight grants you the performance you always wanted. I'm telling you, that's how it is. Anyone who has experience with bodyweight training knows exactly what I'm talking about. The same goes for those who perform weighted calisthenics in general. If you could rep out 5 plates on the weighted dip and then just drop it down to bodyweight, you feel like a feather. The carryover is there. That's what we're talking about here. Getting bigger muscles, way more condition, and carry over that you otherwise would not have gotten as much when performing basic variations. In other words, standard push-ups and dips are going to be far more effective now that you're heavier compared to when you were super lean, because in that case, you had to do a lot more repetitions. It was harder to go to failure. You had to modify leverages a little bit. In this way, we're keeping things super simple. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes guys don't care about doing all these advanced moves or skill work in general. They just want to get a good muscle building workout while acquiring more fitness gains at the same time. So always take advantage of calisthenics when you're bulking up. Think of it like the gravity chamber in Dragon Ball Z. Don't you want to experience that? Anyhow, my next point, which you don't hear a lot of guys talking about, is to perform lots of cardio. Why? Because you'll be able to handle more volume, which is extremely important because you can recover from it. Thing is, when you're in a calorie surplus, of course, eating the foods that I talked about before, being healthy, your recovery abilities are that much more enhanced. But if you're not fit enough to handle the extra volume, you're wasting the opportunity. So you need to do conditioning work at all times to make sure that you can do something like a 5x10 or a 5x20. You can up those reps. You can shorten those rest periods as well. You can do workouts that lean guys can't perform, which there's no excuse, by the way. Yes, you're going to feel a bit more sluggish when you're bulking, but you can still be super fit. Look at some of the heavyweight boxers out there who are rather fluffy that put you to shame, myself included. So you can be fit and you can be healthy at a heavier weight. And in this video, I gave you some ideas on making sure that's maximized, like not exceeding 20% body fat, eating healthy, etc. Right? So in this case, GPP is a must do. I recommend 2 to 4 times a week. And keep in mind, it doesn't have to be low intensity cardio either. It can be doing a quick burpee workout, some boxing rounds, some kettlebell swings. 20-minute sessions will do you fine. If anything, do high intensity interval training 2 to 4 times a week. Just make sure that you're moving your body beyond the weight training because you can handle it. The recovery is going to be there. You're not going to have any problems whatsoever. And now is not the time to start losing your fitness gains. You see those guys who perform squats, they're completely out of breath after one set. Listen, bro, I know it's a taxing movement, but you shouldn't be completely dead. I've had some guys that were unable to finish their sessions because they lack work capacity. Heck, this is why some guys can't finish their full body workouts, even though everybody should be able to do them. Yes, they're hard, but they should be completable. Work capacity is the secret. Former athletes, look at some football players who transition into bodybuilding, just general strength training. They do amazing at a heavier body weight because they can handle the freaking workout that's been written out. If you're following an aggressive system, maybe it's high volume and high frequency, you're recovering from it. But if you can't do it properly, what was the point of running the program? GPP, I can't emphasize it enough. And I'm going to be sure to release more content about that, by the way, because I do feel like I've discussed it a lot of times, but I haven't shown you enough stuff. So look out for that. But yeah, stay healthy during your bulk. Do lots of conditioning work. And if you want to run, so be it too. All it means is you'll be able to eat a lot more calories. And if I go back to the first point, the guys who tend to overeat, this might be really helpful for you. Hard gainers aren't going to like this as much though. So in that case, you want to stick to the shorter workouts that are slightly more intense. But for all you guys who can eat a lot of food, yeah, you can do some long distance running or cycling, whatever works for you. Like I said, the recovery is not going to be an issue. And don't think that you're going to burn off your muscle mass or screw up your bulk. If anything, it's going to make things better because you're a lot more healthy and you're reducing the fat gain, but you're still getting all the adequate macro and micronutrients. Anyhow, enough about that. Now I bring on to my final point, which is to not waste your bulk. Too many guys have glaring weaknesses which are not being addressed. And it's a darn shame that now that they're in a surplus, they have this amazing recovery ability that they're still not doing it. Why? It's due to laziness. But by not correcting this problem, you're just making things harder in the long run, and at some point, you're gonna regret it because all of us who've been training for many years will eventually have higher goals. And you're gonna be like, darn, I wish I started doing this when I was younger. That's how it was for me with neck training. So imagine other muscle groups that may be lagging. For example, not emphasizing lower body performance. You might have a 400-pound deadlift, yet your bench is at 315, which is an extremely distorted ratio, by the way. And you didn't take advantage of the opportunity when you were bulking. You could have made so many better gains, faster progress, with less recovery issues. And now you got more catching up to do years later. And keep in mind, it's not exclusive advice to bulking, but it certainly makes a difference when you are being accountable with the diet aspect, because now we can really dial in on that programming. And that's another thing too. As I discussed with the GPP segment, you need to maximize your routine. Don't just strive for effective training. Shoot for optimal, the best of the best. If you can handle 20 sets a week per body part and still recover from it, go ahead. Generally speaking, the more volume, the better. If you can max out every single week, heck, if you can max out on 2 presses, plus doing all your volume work on top of it, why not go for it? Push the boundaries, push your limitations, see what you're able to handle, shoot for the maximum recoverable volume. Because there's no better time than now. I've often said that being in a calorie deficit requires modifications to your workouts, typically lower volume, and you can't quite go at 100%. You might be doing the 3 sets of 1 at 90% approach instead. Well, guess what? You're in a surplus now. Take advantage. Take advantage of everything that I talked about today. The calisthenics, the GPP, the leverages. Heck, if you're someone who had a strong overhead press his whole life, but a proportionally weaker bench, run a specialization program. You can do that while hitting high volume push-ups, basic style, and your pecs are gonna maintain just fine. You're still gonna get all the carryover you need, but now you're correcting that weak link, which has been holding you back in a lot of ways. And now your strength potential is going to be higher. So it's all about being more complete and not being lazy, not just settling for less when you know for an absolute fact that you're capable of more. If you're over here, but you could be here, why not go for it? It's a no-brainer. So although you might be making phenomenal progress right now, later down the road, you might be like, wow, I was eating all this food. I was training so hard. I was doing all these things, yet it wasn't optimal. I could have made better results. And that's the thing. We don't want to have regrets about potential gains that were absolutely achievable. So when you know what your worth is and you elevate those standards and you train to the highest ability of what you're capable of, that's when things get exciting. That's when the journey and the process overall is heightened. So that's all I gotta say, man. 5 bulking tips. Hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know if you got any advice of your own. Let's see in the comment section, and I'll talk to you all next time.